Welcome into Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jarrell Hendricks. Got a great interview today, a very special guest, the head coach of the Midland Valley Mustangs, Earl Chaptman. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
Doing well. We appreciate your time. You know it's a busy time for you. Appreciate you hopping on with us as always. But if this is you guys' first time tuning in, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS, website movingchains.com, podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Coach Chaptman is in his third season as the head coach of the currently 9-0 Midland Valley Mustangs. Coach, let's start with your coaching career. How did you get into it, and how did you get to where you are now at Midland Valley?
Wow. So I kind of always helped out, even when I coached, like when I was a kid and I was, in high school, I always helped out back with like my youth program and things like that. But it was really my sophomore year in college. I remember sitting in a defensive back meeting with my DB coach. And, as a freshman, I was kind of just trying to learn what I needed to do and try to find a way to get on the field. And then it was literally one day in that meeting, it all clicked. Like as he's drawing stuff on the board and we're watching film, it kind of all clicked for me. It's like the picture started to make sense, like how everybody has to fit, gaps and all those sort of things. So it was pretty much that moment for me. It was like, hey, maybe coaching is something that I want to get into. And literally, I think it was a week later, I changed my major from computer science to exercise science. And then it's kind of gone from there. So I finished playing, and then I coached 1 year of high school ball in Florida at Bartram Trail High School. And then I was able to get into some small college ball in Pennsylvania and places like that. So I coached Division III ball for about 7 years before I ended up at Camden as the defensive coordinator with Brian Rem for 4 years. I came in with him when he got there. I was there with him for 4 years, and then got the head job here, 3 years ago.
So, Coach, before you got to Midland Valley, we don't have the exact number, but you guys won single-digit games there over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
What was that rebuilding process like? How was it to change that culture? I know the job's not finished, but how rewarding is it to see the fruits of those labors?
Well, it's obviously very rewarding to go from winning one game in year one, winning 5 games last year, and now, being 9-0 where we are currently. But the process was one, and I even said this when I interviewed for the job. It was, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. It's kind of my take on it. Obviously, Camden has had a history of being successful, but when Coach Remph got hired, there had been some kind of down years. They were still a playoff team, but I think before we got hired, they lost to Chapman. And Chapman scored like 70 points in a playoff game or something ridiculous. So obviously, with Coach Remph and getting to Camden, there was still some sort of rebuild there. And I tell people all the time, our first year at Camden, we won 3 games, right? And those same guys who were, the Willis Lanes and the Joseph Burns, those guys were freshmen then. And then, in their senior year, we're playing for a state championship game. And so just being a part of that process at Camden and seeing us go from winning 3 to competing for a state championship, it was kind of like, okay, let's just implement the things that worked at Camden. Obviously building the culture and building, the camaraderie amongst the team, but the little things, getting in the weight room, really studying the film and teaching football. We call it FBI, football intelligence. We try to increase that as much as we can. And then getting our guys closer together as a family. Like I noticed in my first year, we had, those little groups and cliques around the team, little pockets of 3 or 4 guys who kind of just hung out with each other. The team didn't really communicate very well. And so we started doing some things in the off season. One of the things we do every year is we go to FCA camp. And that's just, 3 days with us all together and really building that team camaraderie and building, setting our goals for the season. That's something that we do at FCA camp. So those little things, I think, obviously getting good scheme and running good plays and having good players, but it's been more of the off the field that has allowed us to be successful on the field.
Coach, for folks who maybe haven't seen you guys play this year, what's kind of maybe your style on both sides of the ball and your scheme? And do you still call plays for the defense?
I do still call plays for defense. And then offensively, my offensive coordinator calls it. I'll get on the headset every now and then and say, hey, let's run it. hey, I want take a shot or whatever it may be. But for the most part, I let my offensive coordinator, Coach Dorn, he does a phenomenal job with the offensive side of the ball. I let him pretty much handle it. But I'll call the defense, and it's been a little bit different for me, obviously, because being the head coach, you don't get to just be defensive focused. So I've delegated a lot to my assistants. They've done a phenomenal job of helping me with that. But for us, if you're watching us, you're going to see a team that's going to run the football, which everybody knows right now. We run it by choice, not by force. That's what I think people don't really know that about us. And then defensively, we're a 4-3, 4-2-5 defense, kind of based on formation. We're going, number one goal is to try to stop the run. We're going to try to get 8-9 guys defending the running game, and then we'll kind of go from there. But we want to play fast. We want to play physical. I think that's the brand of football we've been playing this year, which has helped us a ton.
You got the star running back in Trayvon Dunbar, but Coach, it takes a team effort to be 9-0. Who are some other special players on your team that, want to give some shout outs who have, maybe flying under the radar? Because I know I talked to you before the game. I think it was week 2. You said we got 3 running backs. So let the people know about those special players you have.
Yeah, man. Gosh, when I get asked this question sometimes now in this year, I feel like I'm saying too many names. Like it almost feels that way.
Say them all.
Say them all. But, so I'll just start, obviously, on the offensive side of football. Obviously, there's 21 and there's 9, right? Those guys are, I think, as special as they get as far as running the ball. I was around Willis Lane at Camden, who was a really special player, and these kids are definitely on that level. And then you go to Antron Butler, who's our slot receiver. He punts for us. He returns kicks. He's the holder on extra point. I mean, he's just an all-around athlete. He played some defense for us last week. So he's a pretty special player who kind of gets lost in the shuffle, obviously, with Trey and Preston getting so much attention. Evan Phillips had a really big game against Silver Bluff. He's really come on and done some phenomenal things for us. So those 4 guys there, and I think Preston Butler has done a great job of doing what I asked him to do, and that's manage the football game, right? We are very talented around you. We have the ability to run the football. We're not asking our quarterback to be Patty Mahomes, right? We're asking our guy to be Brock Purdy. Let's hand it off and let's not make mistakes, and we're going to be in good shape. So, and then up front, I always have to show those guys love, man. We just last week, we just eclipsed the 3,000-yard rushing mark for the season. So obviously that starts up front, but I'll really point out the 3 seniors, and it's Braden Kesselring, who's a North-South guy, Peyton Owenby, who kind of gets lost in that shuffle too. He's actually our starting right guard, who does a phenomenal job, and then our starting right tackle, Ashton Mazzone, who's a really good player, really come on a lot this year. We thought he could be special, but his dedication to football has really increased, and I think that's why we're seeing this play increase. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think we're really good up front. Jeremy Freeman is probably the guy that stands out the most. Number 92 has had a great season, just got selected for Border Bowl.
Awesome.
Leon Robinson's another senior up front. One guy I want to point out is Jake Ron Smith. He is an undersized defensive lineman, but he's so solid, man. He's so coachable. He does what he's supposed to do. I guarantee you, people watching our film and game planning aren't looking at him as a guy that they need the game plan for, but he consistently gets it done, and you can trust him, and those are the things that we care about. Jesus, man. And then our linebackers, Andrew Hawkins, Dominic Morgan, especially those 2 guys are, I think, top 12 in the state right now in tackles. So they've done a phenomenal job. And then on the back end, we're pretty good. But again, I try to put a lot of the onus on the seniors, and number 1 being Jaden Simpkins, another North-South guy. And then our strong safety has really played really well. Hosey Dukes, number 1. He has really improved. When I got here, he was playing receiver, got him over, had him at corner a little bit last year, finally got him to safety, and now he's at home, and he's played phenomenal. He had 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 6 assists, and a forced fumble last week. So, again, I feel like I'm naming everybody on the team, it feels. And then I never want to leave out my guy, Peyton Waters, our kicker. He's done a phenomenal job. He's missed 0 extra points all year. He's missed 1 field goal. He's done a great job of spotting the ball for us where we need on special teams. So definitely want to show him some love as well.
Well, Coach, you're undefeated, so I'm sure you got a lot of players that are playing pretty good, so we don't mind you doing that at all. But, with you guys being 9-0, how pleased are you with where your team is at this point in the season? Is there a lot of room to grow still, or do you think that you're maybe starting to peak at the right time here?
No, I think there's some things that we can still do better. Do I think we're in a good position going into week 10 and preparing for the playoffs? Yes, I do. But there's still always things that we can clean up. And that's where we're focusing right now, is cleaning it up. Because I think a lot of times when you have success, you kind of ignore the things that maybe aren't necessarily going well. And I've experienced this in my coaching career. And then you get into the third round of the playoffs, fourth round of the playoffs, and the state championship game, and those things that you've gotten away with, they come back to bite you. When you're playing Chapman and Daniel and these type of teams, they're going to expose you on some of those things. And so that's the focus right now, is identifying the little things that maybe we've gotten away with over the course of the first 9 games, and making sure as we continue to play better competition into the playoffs that we don't get beat by those things.
Coach, we're catching you week 10, catching up with you in the middle of prep. You got a region title, huge game on this Friday against North Augusta. What is it going to take? Is there anything in particular you've seen as far as advantages, disadvantages, without delving too much, of course, that's going to allow you guys to be victorious on Friday night?
Well, here's one thing I would say, and I wouldn't say necessarily that it doesn't relate to X's and O's and tape.
Yeah.
The biggest thing when you've lost to a program for 25 years or whatever it is at this point, it's more here than anything else, right? So it's a matter of getting our guys to believe that we can actually win this football game, right? I think that's the biggest hurdle, is the mental side of, hey, it's North Augusta, we haven't beaten them in X amount of years. That's been the hurdle. I don't think it's, hey, we need to come up with a great scheme or whatever it may be. It's just more the mentality of believing that we can win this football game. Sure. And the thing that I think will help us this year is, one, we've won every football game that we've played. So believing that we can win should be something that we should be able to do at this point. And the other aspect of that is with social media, these kids all know each other. And I say that to say that, in the past, when you're playing a team, you may not necessarily know who they are. These kids have played against each other from, rec through middle school, through high school. So they may know the kids on North Augusta better than we even do as coaches.
Yeah,
and so that familiarity, I think, with the opponent gives them also a little bit of comfort in knowing, hey, I at least have an idea of what we're going to see and who these guys are and what they're capable of. But that's the biggest thing for us. It's just the changing of the mentality. It was the same thing when I was at Camden, that we hadn't beat Hartsville for 10 years. And we finally went up to Kellytown and got them there. It was the same concept. It was just, hey, believing that we can actually get this accomplished. And I believe our guys believe that this week.
Yeah, talking about that 24, 25, whatever it is, losing streak, their coach to North Augusta. Is that something that you embrace and you put it up on the whiteboard and say, hey, guys, we're trying to break this? Or do you just kind of business as normal? Or how do you kind of handle something like that when it's such an odd situation?
Well, it's something that's obviously there, but it's a middle ground of, yes, that's the history, but, I've been here 3 years, you're right? Yeah. My kids are 17 and 18 years old. So while everybody looks at something that's happened for 24, 25 years, in our mindset, I'm trying to say, hey, look, that may be true, but we haven't been a part of all of that. So now we have our chance to prove where we are now. And that's kind of what the focus has been, is let's look forward. We're not looking at even last year, where I thought we started the game well and then some things went bad, and that mentality of, it's North Augusta kind of set in again. I just think for us, it's just got to be a matter of us understanding that we have the ability, we're capable of being able to play in these games, and that we can be competitive in these games. But I really believe the mentality of our group is that they can compete with anyone. And I think that's going to be the biggest difference this year over the course of the past 25 years.
Coach, I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your career. You talked earlier about, your experience coaching college ball and, really finding a passion for coaching. And you were in a good spot, coaching at Camden, being a DC, you're a very attractive, hire there, and you could have waited it out. What made Midland Valley stand out to you and make you want to go and take on the challenge of coaching at that program?
Well, honestly, I was probably just a young coach who was too eager to want to be a head coach. I'd done, I said, 7 or 8 years at a college game, and Jesus, when I started out at that level, you're really doing the dirty work,
Yeah, sure.
And then transitioning into high school, having been a coordinator for some time. And then it was just really, for me, it's like the next step in my career in coaching. What is that next challenge? I'm a guy that's, I like to continue to challenge myself as much as I can. I thought I could be successful as a head coach. So that was something that I wanted to do. And a lot of people don't know, after my second year at Camden, I actually interviewed for the job here. And I didn't get it. I finished second to Kenny Freeman at that time. So I didn't get it at that time. And then obviously we go back to Camden and then we have 2 more successful seasons. And I just thought, from watching a little bit of film and tape that I saw, that there was talent here, and it was just a matter of getting it going in the right direction. Because a lot of these guys, and I've said it before, the same guys that we're winning with right now at 9-0 are the same guys that were sophomores when we were 1-10. It's not like we had, obviously Trayvon Dunbar helps, right? But the Antron Butlers, the Evan Phillips, the Braden Kesselrings, the Jeremy Freemans, all those kids were already here. And so, to me, the talent was already here. It was just a matter of getting it going in the right direction, getting them in the weight room, doing all the little things that was going to allow us to be successful. So, obviously, you got to have players. And I thought the players were here, and it was just a matter of me leading them and getting the right support staff around me as far as my assistants to help guide these guys on what we needed to do to be successful.
Coach, we talked about the game earlier. It's a huge game on Friday against North Augusta. Maybe the biggest one in, probably 20, 25 years from Midland Valley, at home especially.
Probably maybe the biggest one ever for me.
What kind of atmosphere are you expecting out of that Mustang crowd?
Well, I'm under the impression there's already been about 4,500 tickets sold. I believe.
Love it. Oh, yeah. Love it.
I believe. I think that's what I saw somewhere. I'm kind of in the mode this week. Y'all handle that stuff. I'm going to focus on the football. But that's kind of what I've heard. But our crowd has really been great for us this year. Our guys really feed off of it. I think it started really last year when we played Aiken on homecoming. And we had a really good showing that night. And that kind of spiked the community's interest in Midland Valley football again. And then obviously this year we've played some really good games and big games at home. But our crowd has done a phenomenal job of just being there and supporting our guys. I've had people come to me and say, Coach, I haven't been in a game in 15 years. I haven't been to a game in 10 years. And these are people who are now attending games and coming to games. So it's been a great thing. We have a great atmosphere here. I don't think a lot of people know about it. We have a DJ who DJs our game, so it's pretty intense, and the music's loud, and the student section's into it. Everybody's into it. I've invited back some of our football alumni to actually be on the sideline during the game for this week. So we're just trying to create that atmosphere where people want to be on a Friday night, where there's not much else going on in Graniteville, so why not be at L.L. Willis Stadium watch the Mustangs play? And we're really grateful of the amount of support that we've gotten from our fans. Even when we travel now, there's a couple of away games we've played where we've had more fans than the actual home team, which I guess 2 or 3 years ago was never happening here. So we're very appreciative of it. I think our guys like to put on the show. We talk about it all the time. Hey, people are here to watch you, put on the show. And so I think it's something they've embraced as well.
Coach, I'm going to ask you a couple of easier ones before we let you go. You mentioned having a DJ at the game. What's on your pregame playlist? Pregame before you guys are ready to hit the field.
Sorry, announcements.
Hey.
I really don't give him necessarily a pregame playlist per se. It was one of those things. It's like, hey, what the kids like. You just play it.
Yeah.
Just don't get me fired when playing it.
No, what are you listening to personally?
Oh,
what
am
are
I
you
listening to personally? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I'm a 90s hip hop guy, man. Like
Okay.
early 2000s, 90s guy. So I'm a big Jay-Z fan. It's like my biggest artist of all time. Like for me, grew up listening to him. So I'm listening to some Jay-Z. I'm usually mixing in a little bit of DMX is one,
Okay.
right? Just that intensity level.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of transitioning more into the 2000s and getting like some Young Jeezy, some stuff that I listened to when I was still playing. Kind of going back and kind of getting myself back in that pregame mode. And then, you know, probably like J. Cole and stuff like that. Those are kind of my things. I don't quite listen to as much of the. I don't quite listen to as much of the newer stuff that the kids listen to, but yeah, that's kind of my normal playlist. It's just, I'm a mood guy, man. There's certain songs I have to hear before every game. It's just one of those things. So, yeah, I try to keep the playlist fresh though, as much as I can.
Okay, so Coach Drill and I, big food guys, so we're heading down for a ball game in Graniteville. Where are we going for a pregame meal? What's your favorite spot in the area?
Oh man, pregame meal in Graniteville. Here's one I'll give you. Small little place. It's called Blue Top. Okay, and it's a small burger place, and it's been open. Jesus, I want to say like since like the 40s, 50s.
Oh, wow.
It's a small it's like a home. They make homemade. The burgers are homemade, just as you would make them at home yourself. I was actually just talking to somebody literally 10 minutes before we started this interview about going there for lunch today. So that's probably would be my first suggestion. But we have a lot of small, like family-owned food places in our area. But Blue Top, I would say, definitely is number one to go ahead and check that one off the list, just to see you've been there.
Last one for you, Coach. We talked about it. It starts this Friday, you know, region championship game. But what's it going to take, you know, beyond that to make a deep run in the postseason? And do you think that this particular team is poised to do so?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things we all say it, don't look ahead, but we all do it at the same time, right? And so, you know, kind of looking at the way things may line up, obviously we need to be successful on Friday night to put ourselves in the best situation. But looking at the way things line up for us, I think we have a chance to be successful in the playoffs. I think it could be very similar to 2015 here, when they had Daniel Carr and some of those guys who ended up making a run to the state championship and obviously losing to South Point at that time, where there's going to be some things that need to fall in place for us and fall in line for us to help us out a little bit. But I think we can compete with the teams that are in front of us. I think our ability to run the football will give us a chance to be in a lot of football games, even against some of the big names like South Point and Westside and Northwestern, right? I haven't seen much Northwestern, but I can see when you score 61 points on South Point. So like that must have been impressive, I can imagine, right? Yeah. So those are the things. We know it's out there. We know, you know, if we get into the first, second round, we feel comfortable. We know third, fourth round, we'll probably be an underdog against whoever we're playing if we can get to that moment. And then we just need to go out and take advantage of an opportunity that's in front of us, just as the 2015 team did when they had to play Everett Golson. You know, so, you know, we may not necessarily be picked as the guys to win it, but hey, we haven't been picked. We weren't picked to be 10-0. We weren't picked to be 9-0. We weren't picked to be any of the things that we are right now. So why let that stop us now?
Well, this has been great. I want everyone to go check out Coach Chaptman and the Mustangs program on Twitter and Facebook and social media. They do a great job sharing highlights and updates on their teams. Certainly go follow them on there. Like I mentioned, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Movin Chains, movinchains.com. Podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Movin The Chains brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Drill. Anything else for Coach? We'll let him go today.
Hey, Coach, just congratulations so far. You know, it's been a heck of a turnaround, and that's a testament to you and your staff. You really put yourselves on the map. That Silver Bluff game that we were at, man, I looked at Kev. I was like, these guys are for real. They're going to make a run this year, and it's been really fun to follow your program. So we wish you continued success. Good luck on Friday, and just stay healthy. And we'll be covering you guys for a few weeks. And because that Central Savannah region, man, y'all have the most passionate fan bases there. We've really loved, you know, following those teams.
I don't know if you all have seen that CSR SRA page. I get screenshots from it all the time, man. I'm like, geez, I didn't
Popping
even realize it was that intense, man. But it's been good to see, and I just want to say that I think this area's football is really increasing, man. Like, I know this class is really good with the Staleys and Treys and the Fullers and all those guys, but there's guys, juniors, sophomores, freshmen on a lot of these programs that are really good players too. So I'm glad to see that this area is getting a little recognition for the talent that we have in it. And then the last thing I'll say that, we're still wondering why Carolina hasn't talked to Trayvon, but we'll deal with that when it comes.
You and me both, Coach.
We all are. Hey, Clemson too, all of them.
So, but I really appreciate what you guys do too, man. I actually listen to y'all like everything that y'all do. I was listening to the recap show this morning, actually, while I was getting dressed to come. So I check you guys out on Sundays, Tuesdays, Fridays. When we get on the bus, I'm usually checking in so I can get updated. So I appreciate what you guys have done for high school football in South Carolina too. It's amazing, man.
Well, we appreciate that, Coach. Appreciate your time and your support for sure. And look forward to seeing you again here in the playoffs. And best of luck the rest of the way, all right?
All right, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.